Hi everyone, thank you for tuning in with me today and listening to my talk about imposter syndrome and why you need it. With everything that 2020 has brought in this world, I know it's hard to focus on anything that's not mission critical. So I want to thank you all for coming out and listening to my talk and sharing your digital space with me. Before I get started, I want to give a brief introduction to everyone about who I am. My name is Valerie Phoenix, and my pronouns are she, her, hers, and I am the CEO and founder of Tech by Choice. Tech by Choice is a nonprofit that's on a mission to increase diversity in STEM by making sure all underrepresented individuals know that STEM is a place that they can enter, stay, and thrive in. And we do so from a very holistic standpoint, while we help individuals build their skill set and make sure that they have the skills and know the opportunities that STEM offer them. We also address some of the burdens and challenges that underrepresented groups face. So we offer things such as mental health awareness, as well as financial literacy workshops. Outside of my community work, I'm also a software engineer at Mastery Logistics. So when I'm not doing community work, I am coding. And I usually talk about what I do daily on Twitter. So if you want to connect with me, go ahead and follow me on Twitter. My handle is digital BLK hippie. And as you can see from this screenshot here, I like to talk about tech, but the way I see it and the way I interact with it. So please feel free to follow me, reach out to me. We can continue the conversation around this talk. Or if you have questions about Tech by Choice, let me know. My DMs are always open. And Tech by Choice is currently looking for companies to partner with. So if you have any leads on that, definitely let me know. So now it's time for me to go ahead and jump into this talk about imposter syndrome and why you need it. And I know the title of this talk is not the usual way that you hear people talk about imposter syndrome. In reality, if we look at how the industry has been talking about imposter syndrome, you would get the feeling that it's just a buzzword. And I can say the same thing too. When researching about this talk, I came across a countless number of articles and podcasts and videos and TED Talks and all of this content. And I mean, if we're being honest, we can count this talk as some of the content around imposter syndrome because this talk is about imposter syndrome. So take what I'm saying here with a little grain of salt because I'm in the same boat. But I want to be very clear that I don't believe that imposter syndrome is a buzzword. Because if we look at what 2020 has brought us, it's nothing but uncertainty. And that is causing a lot of people to feel like they're imposters. They're starting to question their skill set and if they made the right decision to either enter tech or take this new job or take on this task and all of this work that they have to do. And all of those feelings are valid. It's okay to feel that way. And this comes to my biggest issue that I have with imposter syndrome. It's mostly around the discussion that the industry is having about it, and not so much the fact that people are saying that they have imposter syndrome. If we look at the current discussions, whatever type of content you look at, you'll see that it's broken down into 3 parts. They say it's real, and during that part of the content, they talk about the fact that it's a real thing, and they go into defining imposter syndrome as a feeling that someone who is highly skilled, has the experience and the skill set to do their daily work, but they are stuck feeling like at any moment they're going to be outed as a fraud because they are constantly moving in a world where they feel like they're not good enough, they don't know enough. And it feels good to know that when you have those feelings, you can name it and you know that it's now called imposter syndrome. And then we see the content, once we understand what it is and what it feels like, we slowly morph into the discussion of other people have it. And this is a part of the content that gets really interesting. They tend to talk about the fact that isms, sexism, racism, homophobia, anything that will make someone in a room feel like an other, they understand and they break down the fact that that increases the chances that someone else feels like an imposter. This is key. This is amazing that we're highlighting this as an industry, because we are able to say that we understand that the environments that we work in still support those isms that make people feel like others. And because of that, we have a different experience than our counterparts may have. We make this great connection, and then the content typically just ends. It's great to know that other people feel the same way that you do, and you can vibe all you want around that, but the fact that we end the conversation there, that's what really gets me. And that's what I'm the most upset about. And it really makes me think about this quote that Maya Angelou says. If you don't like something, change it. And if you can't change it, change your attitude. After working with the community, especially the Tech by Choice community, for the last few years, I wanted to do something to help folks who kept telling me they felt like they couldn't do it, even though I know that they had the skill sets to do more than what they were saying. And so I came up with this 3-step framework to help folks overcome imposter syndrome by viewing it as something that helps you learn. The first step of this framework is to break down what is making you feel like an imposter. You want to focus on what external factors are happening and what internal feelings they're causing. So for example, one reason and one way that I see a lot of people feel like an imposter in the workplace is when they're given a task that they don't fully know how to do. So the external factors could be the fact that they received a task that they didn't know how to do. This could be that maybe the task wasn't completely scoped out, maybe they don't know who to connect with. There are multiple different reasons why that task was given to them. And those are all the external factors. The internal factors is all the negative talk that starts to happen in your head when you get that task and you don't really know what to do to finish it. So if we think about that example that I just gave, we can clearly see that some of the issues and the reason why we tend to spiral and have those negative ideas and thoughts come to our mind is because we lack the structure that we needed in order to complete the task. So structure is key here. And this is what led me to create step 2. In order for us to overcome it, we first had to identify it, and then we need to figure out what can we do to build in that structure. So the next time you are in a position where you don't know what to do, you can fall back on this structure. This is key. We want to always know how can we build this structure. So based off of the last example I gave, some ideas for structure can be, we can address it externally. Some of the external things that we can do is ask for clarification around the task that was given to you. Reach out to your team to see what other departments can help you come up with some of those solutions to help you get to your end goal. Another thing that we can do is ask for help. I think asking for help is key, but it's also related to some of the internal feelings that we're having. If you already feel like you may not be good enough, you're starting to feel like you're an imposter, asking for help may not be as easy as it seems. And so that's why I want to rephrase how we think about asking for help. When we ask for help, we have to do so in a way that still gives us power. Now, that can happen a number of different ways. For me, I've personally reframed how I think about asking for help. And so I don't run into this issue that often. Not anymore, it still happens, just not that often. So I can now ask for help and not question if I'm good enough or what the other person thinks of me, because I see asking for help as a way for me to gain information, so I'm still in a position of power. For some people, they just have to rephrase how they ask for help. Instead of saying, I don't know how to do something, you can ask your coworker, hey, how would you tackle this challenge? What would be your thought process in accomplishing this goal? Simply rephrasing things this way can really help you ask for help. So why is structure so important? Well, if we think about it as humans and we look at developmental psychology, from the time that we are children and newborns to the time that we are adults, we have a number of different milestones that we know that we should hit. And when we don't hit those milestones, we're given a number of different avenues and pathways that we can go to help us get back on track or find another track that best suits us. One thing that stands out to me the most when I think about structure and developmental psychology is the APGAR test. This is a test that is given to newborns. They check the heart rate, muscle tone, and other signs to see if the child needs extra medical care or emergency care if it's needed. We have all this in place as children and as we become adults, but once we get out of these environments, we lose all of this structure. We no longer have those benchmarks in school to tell us if we're right on plan, on mark, and we don't know how to gauge where we are in our career development. Now, there are companies who have growth plans and career mappings within their industry and organizations, but for some of us, most companies don't have that, so we're lost. And that is key to making us feel like we're imposters, because we don't have a clear roadmap to understand where we should be and where we want to go. So if we think about it, when we enter in the real world and become adults, we are given all of this additional stress. We don't have the luxury of having someone care for our basic needs such as food, housing, and keeping clothes on our backs. Instead, we have to do that ourselves. But we're doing this in a position where we don't have all the support we are used to having. And for some of us who are caregivers, we have additional people that we have to support and help with these same three things. So we're in an environment that has higher stress, higher risk, with less support. It's no wonder we feel like imposters. I feel like as more and more people understand what imposter syndrome is, more people will be able to identify when they had it. And that's what leads us to step 3. We understand how structure has played out in developmental psychology and how it has helped us grow as individuals and people. So let's try to bring in some of that structure and some of those ideas into step 3 in creating a growth plan. So we go with the same example that I used before about receiving a task that you don't really know how to accomplish. We can easily create a growth plan. Some examples from my growth plan for this situation would be to ask for help, but we would do so in a way that still gives us power. We would be able to then work with the coworker to try to come up with a solution in a quicker and most likely more efficient manner than if we did it on our own. And as we're working with the coworker, we can take notes and start our own personal dev journal to help us understand how we can solve these problems next time on our own without the extra help. And we can use that as a study guide too. So you see, by going through these 3 steps, we were able to overcome imposter syndrome. And I'm coming to the end of my talk, but I really want to highlight these 3 steps, or the golden rules, is to 1, focus on the external factors that cause those internal feelings. Being able to call them out is important to step 2 of adding structure. once you understand what structure is lacking, you can really understand how you can add that into your day-to-day workplace or life so that you can create a growth plan, so you can overcome that imposter feeling and find and use this as a way to empower yourself through imposter syndrome. And if there's one thing I want you to take away from this talk, is the fact that imposter syndrome is not something that will ever hold you back. Instead, it is something that will help you grow as an individual and as a technologist. Thank you for your time. My name is Valerie Phoenix, and this link here is how you can become a Tech by Choice member today and find out how this community can support you in overcoming your imposter syndrome. Thank you.